Hi everyone, this is Sweet Melba. Thanks for joining the channel. So this is part 2 of my video, living alone and being married. So part 1 was about living alone and part 2 is about being married. So the focus of the channel is a life well lived, sharing life stories and life lessons. So here's the part about being married.
So today my story is about living alone or living solo versus married life. So since I was young, I'd say, maybe 11, 12, I did not want to get married. And I was like, I am never getting married. And I said it all the time. So, when you're young and you're kind of, thinking about your life ahead, I just never wanted to get married. And again, I said it all the time. And my best friends, my friends in school, everybody knew that. When the subject would come up, I said, no, I ain't getting married. I ain't going to do that. But I have been married for 18 years now, and I've been married more than I lived solo. So what happened? Well, I'm going to share my experiences, some lessons learned, and the story is to come. So I think what was changing for me and my perspective of did I want to continue to live solo or live alone, or did I want to try and pursue finding someone that I might want to spend more of my time with? I don't know that I really thought, okay, I need to find somebody to marry. I don't think that was my thinking process. I just think I was more open to the idea of maybe it's time in my life that I want to find somebody else to share things with. So, there's a saying, and I'm going to paraphrase this because I don't think this is exact, but what you need in your life comes to you when you're ready to receive it. And so I think I was at that point in my life. It really was, looking at, okay, well, if I'm looking for a partner, somebody to share things with, where am I going to find this person? Because, like I say, I had all my coworkers, my clients, so my circle of friends, contacts was somewhat limited. And I didn't live in a very large community. So I was kind of, I guess I need to start meeting some new people, and how was I going to do that? And I think I'll do another video on this for another time in some more detail. But I went and decided to try the online matching. So back, I don't even think eHarmony still exists. Maybe it does. But I went on eHarmony and tried that. And then I was on Match.com. But anyway, I'm going to leave that short. Like I say, I think that's another story for another day. But that's how I met my future husband. In my late 30s, I think there's a significant kind of lesson there in that I knew what I wanted in my life going forward, or for the most part, right? I'm not a drama person. I really don't like drama at all. And I think being in your 30s, you know what you want, you know what you like, you know what you don't. So I knew kind of what I was looking for, what I was kind of looking for in a relationship. So I think that was helpful. So I think, maybe a little later in life, you've learned some lessons along the way. And again, you've learned what you like and you don't like. So you're kind of weeding through and you kind of know what you're looking for as far as in a relationship or someone to spend some more time with. Like I say, I was looking for someone to share things with, again, conversations, travel, activities, just the day to day normal life routine, and just kind of sharing that. So, again, I kind of had that kind of in my view and kind of what I was looking for. And like I say, I found, well, actually, my husband found me, or my future husband found me. I was getting ready to get off this dating site, and he saw me at the last minute. So, meant to be, maybe. My future husband and I dated for a relatively short period of time, and we decided to take an extended vacation together, and we went to Paris, France. And when I told my mom that we were going, she said, he's going to ask you to marry him. And I'm like, what? And I hadn't even thought of that. We were just enjoying spending time together and whatnot. But I was like, okay. But I talked to my best friend and I said, well, I wonder if, you think that might happen? She said, I don't know, you maybe be prepared for something like that. So sure enough, that's what he did. He proposed in Paris. And how do you say no to that? But no, just kidding. I think, were a very good match. And for me, it was what I was looking for. It was somebody I was comfortable with. I felt like we both, really accepted who each other was. We were further along, again, in our lives. My husband is 8 years older than me. And so, again, we had careers. We were well into our careers. Again, I think we knew what we were looking for. We kind of, had done other things and knew what worked and what didn't, and what we were looking for in our life at that point. So, it really was, I think, a really good match. And I really had no hesitations when my husband proposed. And again, it was just a good fit. So I was looking forward to being married. Really, the differences really is kind of what I wanted to share for those that might be considering, living alone, living single, or considering being married. But for me, again, we were, I think, very well suited, and we really enjoyed spending time together. We had very different activities, and in a lot of respects, we are very different. The whole opposites attract type thing. We have very different perspectives and comfort levels in terms of the activities we like to do. And so maybe that's true. Maybe opposites do attract. But I think we're also very compatible. So some of the benefits, I think, of being married, again, you're sharing your life with somebody, and it's the little everyday things to the big things. Talking about the things that happen in your life, both of us, interactions with the work that we were doing, and being able to talk through, an experience at work or a challenge at work, and how you think you might want to handle it, and kind of talking that through with somebody. And by all means, certainly you don't have to get married to do that. You have a partner that you're in a committed relationship with, and certainly, but just kind of pointing out the differences between being single and alone. And alone, I don't mean in a negative sense. I don't mean to imply that, but being on your own, or being, regularly with somebody. So for me, I enjoy that aspect of being married in our relationship. Also, as I say, the activities and the experiences, traveling together. And again, we have different travel interests, but we share similar interests as well. So when we go traveling, and being able to talk about, the experience that we've just had in another country or a different place, what we enjoyed, what was eye opening, what, just awarenesses, just that the benefits of talking through experiences and life lessons and things like that. Being able to go out and enjoy dining together, we both really enjoy that, and it's something that we look forward to doing. We don't do it as often as we used to, just because we're kind of cutting back on expenses and whatnot, but we really do enjoy going and doing that, even if it's a cheap dinner. So yeah, it's a fun time. And I think one of the benefits, you hear this all the time from people, that being in a relationship or being with the other person who makes you laugh. Life can be challenging and can get you down sometimes, and you gotta laugh. And my husband makes me laugh quite frequently. And I think I do him as well. I think our quirks and just our personalities and stuff are endearing to both of us. There's annoyances, and I'll get to that. But I think for the most part, we find each other funny at times, and makes us laugh. And don't take life too seriously. So being able to laugh in a relationship is important too. And I mentioned briefly, I think for my husband and I that we both, again, being older when we got into the relationship, you know, being settled in our ways in a certain respects, but not not trying to necessarily change the other person. I don't think that's ever a good idea from that perspective, but that we accept who each other is and we really do have time on our own in our own ways. My husband is a lot more interested in social activities than I am, but we both have those balances, and I think we both do our own activities and whatnot. So, when I mentioned talking about, living on my own, that was one of my big concerns about being married or being in a long-term relationship. It was that I was going to have to change a lot, and I don't think that really has happened for either one of us. So I think it's one of those fears you kind of bring up in your own mind. But for us, it hasn't been that way, and I think that's one of the aspects of our relationship that's worked really well for both of us. And, really being each other's friend and encouraging the other ones, but being honest too. Sometimes my husband has some crazy ideas. I'm sure I do too. And I think, oh, that's not a good idea. So, there's balance there too. But, being encouraging to each other, supportive of each other, lending words of encouragement and things like that. And again, not again, one of my fears was that, I was going to be limited in that respect, that being in that relationship or living together was going to limit, what I wanted to do and the things I was interested in. And that certainly hasn't happened in our relationship. So I'm thankful for that. And I mentioned, in living on my own, that your skill levels are only your skill levels, right? You're limited in what you can do. But certainly in our relationship, I think one of the benefits has been our shared skills. Again, have very different interests and shared interests too, but very different career paths and whatnot. So we bring very different skills to our relationship, and that's been great. I'm good at things that he's not good at, and vice versa. Things I enjoy doing that he doesn't enjoy doing. For example, I like doing finances and he doesn't like doing that. So that's worked out really well. But my husband is very handy. He loves to fix things and build things like that. So that's worked out really well too, in that he's able to repair a lot of things. So he's handy, but I think I am too. So you know what? Again, it's a balance. So I think it's worked out well for us. And I think, again, I learned this, that I think we're better together with someone than we are alone. And I think that's something that I've learned over time. It was one of my concerns when I was, thinking about whether I wanted to be in a committed long-term relationship or not. But I think we as people are better together. And certainly in my husband and I's case, I think that is the situation for us. And I like the fact that together we find a way for things to get done, whether that's making the finances work, how we're going to approach, a family situation, of what's the best way to do this, and talking that through. If we're traveling, how we're going to balance out what we're doing based on our likes and comfort levels and whatnot. And we recently had some challenges with that, and we worked through that. And I'll get to share some of those in another video on traveling together. I think I'll do. But yeah, so we find a way for things to get done, for us to accomplish the things we think are important, both together and individually. So that's been an enjoyment, I think, in our relationship as well. But there are challenges, just like there's challenges to living on your own and being single, there are in married life as well, or committed relationship. And, one most people talk about are habits, each other's habits. So we have each of those. I have annoying habits for sure. So, you're one of the things that we've adjusting to is, I think our systems of doing things. You kind of have your way of doing things, they have their way of doing things, especially when you're older, when you get together. So adjustments in that standpoint. One of ours, and this is more a funny thing than it is a challenge for us. But one of our things is the laundry and sorting laundry. That seems to be an ongoing, regular challenge. The way I sort the laundry and him trying to figure it out. He says it's a moving target, that I change it all the time. I don't think that's the case. I think it's very clear. But it's one of those things that we laugh about quite frequently. And sometimes I'm like, you know what, just throw it in the basket. I don't care if it's in the lights, darks, whatnot. Just put it in the basket. I'll figure it out later. But anyways, it's one of those things that is just kind of a funny thing in our life, really. But you do have to make adjustments. And when you love the other person, you enjoy being with the other person, you're willing to do that. And I think we both do that. And granted, I recognize that, being in a committed relationship and being married has its challenging moments. And sometimes they don't work out. But, so far, so good for us. So I'm thankful for that. But you do have to compromise. And, when I was living alone and single, that was what I was so worried about was, I didn't want to compromise. I didn't want to change who I was. And, until you're in that situation and doing that, hopefully you're able to improve on that, and, you find a way to work together and do those kind of things and respect each other and whatnot. And we've been able to do that. So again, I'm thankful for that. But yeah, it's, you do compromise, and you decide to compromise, because you love the other person. And, sometimes it's for the best. It's not always, what you think is the direction to go might not always be the case. But by the same token, I think you certainly have to recognize the other person's comfort levels, be respectful of that, mindful of that going forward and looking into that. So, yeah, you have to work on that. And we do, and we continue to do that, and we find ways to get through those. So, yeah. And you do have to change your plans sometimes. Sometimes the schedule doesn't go your way or their way, and you do make adjustments there. So again, it's a compromise, but you're compromising hopefully for the right reasons. And I think that's an important caveat, right? That you've got to find the balance, and you don't want to not be who you are. And so again, I think for us that's worked out well for us so far. So to wrap things up, I enjoyed living alone. I enjoyed being single. I think that was all good. It was at that point in my life, that was where I think I needed to be, building my career, starting my own business, just figuring more out of who I was. And I think it was certainly beneficial for me that it was later, like I say, into my late 30s, that I was at a different point in my life where I was willing to look at that relationship, committed relationship, and the consideration of being married. It again, I think it came for me when it was right for me, to do that. But again, I enjoyed living on my own, and there's certainly benefits of that. But for me, I think being married has been also beneficial and more beneficial in my life than not. So I have no regrets from that standpoint. And I was fortunate in that I found someone that I fell in love with, and I continue to be. And we enjoy our life, and we look forward at this point. I'm in my 50s, he's in his 60s, and we're in that next kind of going into those final chapters of your life, so to speak. And we're enjoying that next phase in our life and planning for that, looking at the retirement. We're both consider ourselves semi-retired at this point. So we're looking at that retirement, and I've shared a video on that, and I'll continue to do that because I think that's an important chapter in our lives now going forward, and hoping to share some life lessons learned. But yeah, the lessons I learned through this is you change over time, and what you need in your life changes, and what I was afraid of at a younger point in my life changed as I got older. And some of those concerns and fears were not really real, and in the sense that I was able to find a partner in a relationship that didn't create concerns in that area. So thankfully that's so. But like I say, I think we have a very good life. We both enjoy where we are. We both are still very much ourselves. We have our together time. We have our own individual time, and it's worked out well for us. So, again, I'm thankful, and I enjoy, where we're going, where we've been, and looking forward to the next chapter in our life. So I hope some of these experiences and thoughts, some of the lessons I've learned, might be helpful to others. And I thank you for watching today, and I will look forward to seeing you on the porch once again in the near future. So thanks for watching. I'm Sweet Melba. Have a good day. Bye-bye.